All right. So we are reading this spiritual anatomy 13th point. So this is the final chapter. So we might go for another week and then we'll be done with this book and then we can pick up another. So I got few suggestions like Heartfulness Way 2 and then so recently Daji has written about Astavakra Gita, but I don't have the soft copy for it. I have the hard copy. So let's see which book we can pick, but keep sending your suggestions. All right, let's get started. So we are on this seven rings of splendor. We were talking about ego. It's basically, this is the place when we reach, when we cross the seven rings of splendor, ego always becomes sublimated. I mean, almost becomes nothing. So, what is ego is? Ego is our own identification. It's a self-identification. If I ask myself, who am I? I can keep on going. All the attributes I think about myself, how I identify myself. First I identify myself with my physical existence, body, then my mind, my intelligence, my possessions, physical possessions, external. I identify myself with my family, with the country I am living in, with the job I am doing. And most of it are external attributes. But into the come to the internal attributes, at the most I can identify myself with my emotions, and beyond that, it's all blank. Correct? But so these are all the identifications of the self. But once it starts identifying with the real essence within, there is a whole transformation. So it is like this. The ego should be looked at. There's a good example. I think in the recent past, the they banned this 500 rupee notes, correct? In India, it said they're no longer valid. If you have a 500 rupee note, so imagine if the America does it, if you have $100 note, it becomes void. So until it became void, with that, the amount of those notes you have or one possesses, I have, I'm identifying myself with some amount of richness. And suddenly they all became void. So even before it was a paper, but it had some value to it. Even today it is a paper, but there is no value to it. So what remains is the paper. So ego is also like that. The validity of the ego is as long as we see the value in with our identification. The moment that value drops, then we don't know what to look for. So that's why all the spiritual masters and all the scriptures have said the right identification, which will never lose the value, is the real inner essence. So ego is, what is it called? It's a projection. Ego can never be real. It's only a projection, right? Projection because there is some value you're associating with it, right? So that's how we have to understand the ego. So these seven rings have countless towering waves of power that emanates from the center, and thereby and their beauty is indescribable. So to traverse this region, one must ride on one wave after another, and it can be challenging for a novice surfer. However, if you are a champion surfer, you go with the flow and a sweet spot of balance and harmony, feeling entirely weightless, devoid of ego. So it is a similar experience to riding a perfect wave. Someone once told me that Laird Hamilton, the legendary surfer, who described riding the big one as being inside a giant cathedral of water, flying and feeling as if time stands still. So, in the rings of splendor, the ride of one big, one after the another in the infinite ocean. So, to ride these waves effortlessly, the secret lies in absolute and total humility. One feels more insignificant than even a speck of dust. So, this is where the phenomenon of invertendo comes into play. The humbler one is, the higher one rises, and the easier it is to ride waves. Crossing the rings of splendor marks a stage where the swim of the center begins. This is the final state, the highest level one can achieve in the spiritual anatomy project. So, here something we need to understand, becoming humbler. So, the humbleness comes automatically because the humility comes automatically because the ego is sublimed. Now we are no longer identifying ourselves with all the possessions, external possessions. And here the insignificance is not something comparing to something I am insignificant. That's not what the insignificant here means. Oh, I am nothing in front of the Lord. That is a statement without understanding what we are saying. Because if I have to compare myself with the Lord, I have to know the Lord first before I can say in front of the Lord I am nothing. Or I have to understand myself as that nothing, and then I can say in front of anything I am nothing. In front of anything I am insignificant. You cannot. So either you have to know yourself or you have to know the Lord to make that statement. But here the insignificance because there is no more any identification left. So it is that feeling of insignificance because there is no identity left, neither of the self nor of the Lord. You see where the insignificance coming here. So humility is also like that. Humility, in my understanding, is just accepting the entity as is. So here there is nothing great, nothing less. You are great, so I am less. It's not like that. It is a total acceptance of the condition and total abidance in that condition, so that these waves I'm riding without any effort, without knowing that I'm riding. That is what makes us insignificant. So insignificance is not in any comparison to anything. Okay. So that's why spirituality does not glorify something. Yesterday I was giving an example. Suppose if a guy or if two guys have to describe a mango, and one guy has never eaten a mango, never tasted that fruit, only read about it, only heard about it. The other guy, pretty much every season, mango season, he ate mango. Who do you think can describe the mango better? To your surprise, the guy who never ate mango will give a most glorified explanation of the mango. Because I have not eaten it, and because I heard so many great things about it, I glorify it. I give beautiful descriptions about it. I describe about its color, about its taste, but I've never eaten it. Then go to the guy who ate the mango. Tell me about mango. He says it's sweet. That's it. He doesn't give more explanation because there is no reason, there is no need to glorify it. It is sweet. That's enough. See, when we are experiencing the condition of the Lord totally in our heart, what description can I give? I can only say I feel insignificant. It is the feeling of insignificance, not in comparison to anything. Okay. So that's why we need to understand these, terminal terms. We always translate into our own, and then we glorify it. But the spiritual anatomy project, as Daji calls it, is inviting you to experience it, feel it, connect with it, become one with it, unite in it. So that's the invitation here, to experience, not to glorify. Somehow we feel that by glorifying, we get there, or uh, you know, we get some special attention by glorifying it. But no. So the same thing, attitude we bring here in spirituality also. Here we come, and whom do we glorify? We glorify the Master. So the true devotion is whomever you think as the Lord. The true devotion is to reach that condition, not glorification of that entity. So we must strive to reach that condition. Okay. So we cannot, glorify that condition, and if we think that we are feeling, if I say my grandfather was a greatest emperor, and today I'm a beggar, what benefit it does to me by talking about the greatness of my grandfather? It's not going to bring any value to me. See, the same thing here. By glorifying this entity, it doesn't give you anything. So the real attitude, the real journey should be to reach that condition itself. Okay. So I'll stop here for any comments or questions before we move on to the next topic.
Well, I guess that my question is, don't we all reach that condition when we meditate?
And yes and no. So in spirituality, for every question, if I have to say the answer, it is always yes and no. Yes, we reach in every meditation because of the transmission which is given from the highest state, from this state, the highest state which Babuji is talking about, even from beyond that state, the transmission is given. So it puts us in that state. But we are not mentally equipped. See, our only tool we have is mind. We are not mentally equipped to feel that condition, be in that condition. We slowly, the condition unfolds as we are practicing. But in every meditation, we reach that stage, but it has to unfold for us. So this unfolding is what is done by through the remembering that condition. Meditation, we assimilate, like AEIOU, which Daji describes. We assimilate that condition. And by through remembrance, we enliven that condition. And as it unfolds, we become one with it. And to an extent it unfolded, we united with it. It is all attitude. So this AEIOU doesn't happen in one meditation. It is how we live our life, how we connect with that condition, how we live through that condition. The AEIOU happens. So the answer is yes, the condition is there, but it has to unfold as our mind and ego is becoming more and more refined, more and more sublimated, then this state happens. Okay. Yeah, good question, Cliff. Thanks for bringing it up. All right, so
Oh,
let's.
I have another question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Is it necessary to meditate with others to receive transmission?
Is it necessary to meditate?
With others to get transmission?
So, first thing I must say, there is no other. And so it is all about the inner connection, is all about the internal journey. But it's a vibratory state. Even today, yesterday I was telling my nephews that today an electron is defined not as an particle, it is defined as a wave. What it means is there is not really any space in between in an electron and a neutron, or say the proton, the nucleus, right? We thought of it as a space, but what is filled with is it's the wave which is filled. So when all of these electrons come together, or all of the atoms come together, what it creates is a coherence, a effect, what Babuji called in his messages as an egregore. When egregore is created, it affects, multiplies. So that's why, Daji's recommendation is to join these group sessions in person as much as possible, so that you are part of that egregore. So that's why, and I have heard multiple answers. Okay. So, once in one of the seminars, the Chariji was asked the same thing. What is the difference if I sit for my own individual meditation and if I come to the group session? He said, what is the difference when you order the pizza, eat at home, or you go to the Pizza Hut and eat at Pizza Hut? What is the difference? In essence, there is no difference. But when you are at the Pizza Hut and sit there, and there is certain ambience, there is a certain atmosphere is created already over there. And whereas when you come home and eat it, all that you are doing is watching the TV and eating it. We don't know when we gulp the pizza, it's over. Right? And without, fully experiencing the taste of it. So it's both work. It's mostly the individual practice. That's why I said there is no other to begin with. But when it comes to this egregore, if all the minds come together with the same frequency, with the same vibration, then egregore is created. And it kind of creates a different atmosphere. And you feel it when you go to a church versus praying yourself at home, there is a huge difference. The same thing here also. So you, at least we have to make that effort once in a month to come to this egregore and meditate together. The more is the better.
Okay, well, then what does it mean if I don't feel it when I'm together in a gray core?
It's unfolding it. So we have to let that unfold. The feeling is very tangible. The unfolding is it by itself, it kind of generates the condition as the day progresses. So that's why, sometimes you are immersed in it, you don't feel anything. And that's why, someone said, like in Babuji's diaries, for months together in his journal, he wrote, I did not feel anything in my meditation today. And then someone asked him, he said, that's the best condition. So you see, the spirituality, no one can put a finger and say, this is it, including the masters. Even they cannot put a finger and say, this is it. And that's the beauty at the same time. That's the tragedy of spirituality. Because it's tragedy because it is so conditioned. That's what we are talking about, insignificance. The condition is almost non existent. If it is the most subtlest thing, it is almost non existing. And this non existence condition, we are trying to connect with an existential mind. So there is a huge refinement is happening through this process, and we must allow that refinement. So my duty, my role is not to feel it, but allow it to refine. As it refines, you will see a significant difference in your mental state, in your conscious state, and we must allow it. Feeling is there, but and I personally I don't give much importance to the feeling. What I feel is all about, depending on what color of the glass I am wearing at that point. So it is changing, constantly evolving. So we must allow it, right? All right. So the final state, knowledge and non-beingness. We're almost 8:28, so maybe we can cover this topic next week. So, so Cliff, I mean, are you good with the answers, or if you have any other question, we can take up final question and get into meditation.
No, I kind of, I just said this is an experiential practice, so
Yes.
a verbal answer isn't the answer, I guess.
Yes. Which is very much true. You hit the right note there. No verbal answer can satisfy. That's why, go with the same example of the mango. You can read about the mango eternally, but one bite of the mango tells you what that mango is, right? So here we must take those bites, and no one can really answer you completely. Okay. Thank you.